You know what? I think it's time to talk about anxiety and autism, but more specifically, anxiety triggers. So, on this video, I'm going to highlight some of the things that can trigger anxiety in autistic people. Plus, I'll share my own anxiety diagnosis and my lived experiences with anxiety and autism. So, let's go. Hey, I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy, and since my diagnosis later in life, I've devoted my time to advocating for the autistic community. And I do that with my blogs, podcasts, and these YouTube videos. And it's all to increase the level of understanding, appreciation, and acceptance of autistic people. So, if that sounds like something you'd be interested in being a part of and learning more, I'd appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you to those that have already done it. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, share the videos, comment, like, rate, and help us reach even more people on my quest to raise that level of understanding and acceptance of autistic people. As always, you can also reach out to me on my socials and join my community. Follow the Orion Kelly page on Facebook. You can also find me on the other social media platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. So whatever your jam is, I'd love you to reach out and say, hey, find me on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And for those wanting just the one-stop shop for everything Orion Kelly, that autistic guy, go to my website, orionkelly.com.au. On the website, there's everything. All the blogs, all the podcasts, all the YouTube videos, details on me, and you can even reach out and say hey and send me a message. So check out the website, orionkelly.com.au. Another way you can show your support is buy some official Orion Kelly, that autistic guy merchandise. Yep, everything from t-shirts to hoodies to sweaters to mugs, all on the Orion Kelly spring merchandise page. And there's links in the description and on my website. Alrighty then, anxiety and autism. So before we get to the specific triggers to look out for, let's quickly talk a little bit about the connection between anxiety and autism. And just from my personal experience, there is, for some autistic people, a connection between being autistic and also having comorbidities of anxiety or depression or potentially some other mental illnesses. Some people have completely different comorbidities. Me personally, when I was diagnosed as autistic, I was also diagnosed with two individual and separate comorbidities of generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, and social anxiety disorder. And how it's helped me, I guess, is, well, it's complicated to talk about. If you're autistic, you probably have social anxiety disorder without having that comorbidity, because being in the social world for autistic people can be very anxiety triggering. The whole point of this video is to go through and show you the sheer amount of triggers for anxiety. And you know what? It's hard to know the connection between anxiety and autism. If you're autistic and you're anxious a lot, do you have anxiety, or is it just because you're autistic in the way you perceive and view the world? It's a complicated conversation. Let's just go through some of the most common anxiety triggers for autistic people. So the first anxiety trigger I want to put out there is phone calls, making phone calls, receiving phone calls, being on phone calls in general, being brought into them, being thrown into them. In my opinion, in my experience, certainly for me, and presumably for other autistic people, are 100% anxiety triggers. If you said, oh, can you please contact, blah today and organize blah, the chances of that happening are probably astronomical. Now, that's not because I don't want to do something for you. That's because just the sheer anxiety built up over, will I call them? When will I call them? What am I going to say? What are they going to say? And now when people call me, unless I can see who it is, and even then, most of the time, I don't want to talk. And it's not about the person. It's about the idea that I don't want to pick up this phone call for so many reasons. The anxiety of what are they calling for? I could automatically think, are they calling because they need something? Are they calling because they want to come into my space today, right now, when I'm doing something? Are they calling because they want to talk to me about something I don't want to talk about? Or why are they calling? There's so many things that go through my mind just around phone calls. They trigger so much anxiety. Here's a tip for autistic people watching, you should change your voice greeting on your phone to something like, "Hi, thanks for calling. My preferred method of communication is through text or email." So if it's possible that you don't need to leave a voice message or talk to me on the phone, could you please continue this conversation on email or by texting me? Thank you so much for your understanding. Beep! The idea that you have to have voice conversations, let alone face-to-face conversations in person, the idea that that is critical for communication in a modern digital world, I find is actually pretty ridiculous. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is ban the phone call. Ban it. The next anxiety trigger for autistic people is, and you've probably heard me talk about this many times, new places, new people. This is kind of similar to phone calls. And by the way, you don't wear out of it. I'm an autistic man. I think you can tell, potentially. Nevertheless, new places and new people are clear anxiety triggers for autistic people. Why? Think about it. One of the clear diagnostic criteria for being diagnosed autistic comes down to all sorts of social interaction, social communication, the types of things neurotypical people don't even think about. So going to new places, number one, it's not your safe place, right? It's far from your safe place. You've never been there before. Just thinking of a completely fictional new place, the first thing, the anxiety is how long will it take to get there? How long will it take to get back? Who will be there? Where are the nearest public toilets? Are they usable, right? Clean, safe. Are there toilets around? Are they open? Are they still closed because of the pandemic rules? What will I do if I have to go to the toilet? Where will I eat? What do they serve? Will I have to talk to people? Yes, there'll be new people there. Really? So we're going to a new place I've never been to before. I'm not even sure about the toilet situation. And there's going to be new people I'm supposed to just interact with. Another tip for parents and carers of autistic kids. If you are going to take your autistic kid to a new place, number one, that's going to cause massive anxiety. Don't expect them to interact with anyone. I mean people they know and love, let alone new people. You can't trigger anxiety in an autistic child or person. This goes for partners of autistic people. Your partner may be autistic. Hey, let's go to this party, right? It's a new place, new people. You'll be right, I'll be there. Just getting in the door is a massive goal, but they're pumped with anxiety now. And then you get angry because they're quiet or standoffish or stuck in the corner or treating people, I don't know, badly in your minds, that is. Like they're not talking in a nice way, one-word answers or whatever. Yeah, it's because they're pumping with anxiety. It's your call. You can keep forcing this kind of stuff upon your kids and your partners, but don't get angry when the result is they're anxious. Another trigger of anxiety in autistic people is change of plans, change of routine, unexpected changes. Not that it needs to be unexpected. Unexpected change in plans or routine is, let's say, on Mondays, I have the house to myself to record a video, right? Let's say that's the case. And on Sunday, one of our kids got sick. So I know on Sunday that on Monday, I'll be home with our sick child and I won't be able to work on my videos. So that's unexpected. That's a change of plans. It's not unexpected. I know on Sunday, day before. But it's going to still fill me with anxiety because all I'll be thinking is, will I be able to cope with a sick child at home by myself? How long will my wife be at work? When will she get home? Who will help me? What will I do? Will we have to go outside? Will I get muddy? Will I get wet? How many nappies will I have to change? When will I do my video? Will I get to do my video? I'm going to fall behind. Oh no, no one's ever going to watch me again. What am I going to do now? It snowballs, right? Okay, unexpected is I wake up on Monday morning, fully prepared to record a video, and my wife tells me one of the kids is woken up sick. So same scenario in the triggers and the result, except I didn't know it was going to happen. Regardless of knowing or not knowing, it's still an immense trigger. So I get life changes. It has to happen. And as an autistic dad, you have to roll with punches. But understand that in rolling with those punches, it may help the family, and that's great. That's my role as well. But it is going to cause different levels, depending on the person, of anxiety. And that's going to cause different levels of potentially, I guess, negative responses or feelings or behaviors that other people might not feel comfortable with. But what do you want? You can't have it both ways. So it's one of those things where, hey, it's a trigger. You know it's a trigger. And just tread carefully. And connected to that trigger, pretty closely actually, is the next anxiety trigger I want to talk about, which is not having enough time to spend on your special interest, on your passion. So really, like we just talked about, if my child's sick, I won't be able to spend much or any time working on my special interest, my passions, which is creating content. That's clearly going to raise levels of anxiety. Now, take that away. Let's say, you're a parent or carer, or your partner doesn't have a special interest that's related to like a career or work or income or whatever. It doesn't matter. They may just like doing certain things. It doesn't matter if it's productive or not productive. If it's their particular passion, their special interest, they're going to need genuine and ample time on a daily basis to spend time on that particular interest. If that isn't possible because something has come up, like we talked about, the change in plans or routines, or they just simply don't have enough time today because they have other things that are keeping them busy, that's going to cause anxiety. Because from my point of view, working on special interests, on passions, it's like oxygen, honestly, for an autistic person. It's our lifeblood. So not enough time, it can come across to us like a life or death situation. I know it isn't, but inside us, it's just, there's nothing more important. All right, so the next anxiety trigger I want to talk about can really be put into practice in children or adults. And that is things like interruptions, demands placed upon you. Okay, so kids and adults have different interruptions, right? And different demands placed upon them. But it's still a demand or an interruption. If you have an autistic person in your life and they are currently trying to complete a task, it doesn't even have to be special interest. It could be work. It could be school homework. It could be any kind of household task, a task of any kind. If they are doing so, do not interrupt them. Do not place other demands on them. Do not allow other forces, other outside forces, to block them or stop them from completing that task. The only thing important to me is completing this task. Now, that might seem completely inappropriate and obviously, I guess, an overreaction, but I can't fix the way my brain is, and all I'm trying to do is just get this task ticked off. I don't feel I have the ability to start a task and come back to it to complete it later. Of course, there's exceptions, right? I'm not going to write a university thesis in one sitting. No, obviously not. You can't do everything in one sitting. What I'm saying is, if I go, okay, today my task is to do so much or to do this amount, and something else comes in, well then that's going to cause anxiety for me. So pushing back on that, it's not going to help you, and it'll probably trigger anxiety in an autistic person. And closely connected is another anxiety trigger in autistic people, which is not just interruptions in personal demands, which people control, but it's also challenges with your own executive function. I mean, you as an autistic person, challenges with your own executive function capacities in completing tasks. So this is where the anxiety can pile up. There might be a time management issue as well. I'm sorry, buddy, it's dinner time now. You're going to have to complete the rest of that after dinner. What if I forget? How will I finish it? Will I finish it? Is there be enough time after dinner? So you're piling on top of the already potentially intrinsic executive function challenges, which even heighten the anxiety further. Another anxiety trigger I've found as an autistic person, with the whole completing tasks things, putting aside executive function and I guess outside forces, I find what's really anxiety triggering for me is this really strong sense, this really strong feeling of being unprepared or even unable, incapable of actually completing a task. That causes so much anxiety for me. And I guess that can be helped by support. Let's say I'm at uni and I'm studying. And my whole law school story. If you haven't, check out my video on why I quit law school. But anyway, my wife was super important. Okay, so let's say you get an assignment. A law school assignment, as a rule, is pretty intense. Okay, for an autistic kid, an assignment at primary school, pretty intense. So although I know I'll complete this task and I may get a really great mark, grade, score, whatever, when I initially read the assignment structure and I guess the instructions and the topic and what's required, I'm filled automatically with a crazy strong feeling of there's no way I can do this. I am not able to do this. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't know this. There's no way I'm prepared to do this. Not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's too much. But then actually, in fact, a parent, carer, or in my instance, my wife comes in and goes, no, it's no different to all the other assignments. Yeah, sure, the topic's different, but it's the same principle. You just do your research. I can't. I don't even know how to look up this stuff. I don't even know this. How am I going to look at one thing at a time and then work from there? Another really big anxiety trigger, or at least for me as an autistic person, is not enough alone time. Now, this sounds impractical for many reasons to neurotypical people. For example, if you're a husband and a father of kids, what do you mean you need more alone time? What do you think's going to happen? You're not single. You're part of a family. It's impractical, and I get it. What I'm saying is, I acknowledge that too, but I'm autistic. I have a different brain. It's wired differently. I can't be neurotypical. My only way of keeping myself on track, regulated, and a good dad, a good husband, is to maintain regular alone time. It doesn't have to be for long. For me as an adult, I might just need 5 minutes in a room by myself to bring myself back, and then I'm ready to go and continue the war downstairs with the kids. But either way, whether it's a child or an adult, not enough alone time or withholding alone time from an autistic person in your life is any day of the week going to trigger anxiety. And once again, this is not a win-win for anyone. Another anxiety trigger, which I think is really just general right across the autistic population, children or adults, is when you, an autistic person, are communicated to by someone else, probably a neurotypical person, because autistic people tend to not communicate like this, but that is being communicated to in ambiguous terms, unclear language, unclear directions, ambiguous questions, open-ended questions, hypothetical questions. This type of language is extremely triggering for autistic people. It causes anxiety. There's no need to really go too far into this because I have the fix. Be clear. Make sure that your questions, your directions, your language is unambiguous. Make sure it is clear, explicit, black and white, 100% understood. My wife will sometimes make observations, and those observations were actually directions or instructions. Wow, the toy room is absolutely trashed. Comes home from work. Why are the toys still all over the toy room? You can't see the floor. The toys are everywhere. What happened? What do you mean what happened? I agree with you. There are toys everywhere. But what did I miss? Well, I was saying, what's with the toy room? There's toys everywhere. Like, I can't believe how messy it is because I thought that means you would pick it up. I was saying pick it up. You didn't say pick up the toys. You just made an observation. Oh, whoa, the toy room is trashed. And I'm like, I agree. And on the subject of instructions and directions, another anxiety trigger for autistic people is too many instructions, too many directions at once. Well, what is this with neurotypical people thinking you can be asked or instructed to do multiple things and somehow that will be processed? I think a list is okay. That's pretty helpful. If you write a list of, let's say, the top 3 things that could be achieved by the autistic person in your life today. For example, if you have a partner, you might write, could you please wash the coloured load of clothing? The coloured load, not just wash clothes. Wash the coloured load of clothing. Clean the toy room. Wash the dishes. The ones that are dirty. No, it doesn't mean we can't do all those things, because we can. It just means we won't be overwhelmed with anxiety in order to do those things to the point that when we've finished all those things, we have no further energy or drive or want or motivation to do anything that we wanted to do today. As a parent or carer of an autistic child, you may, without realizing it, be placing neurotypical expectations on your child. Now, I know the first thing that most people will say back to the video is, that's rubbish. I bet you do sometimes. I know me and my wife probably do. Right? We know our child is autistic, but it doesn't mean sometimes subconsciously we still have neurotypical expectations. Sometimes it might slip out. You might go, why can't you just sit down like a normal person? That is an example of a subconscious expectation. Well, that's because they're not neurotypical. They're autistic. Maybe you should find them the wobbly chair or find them something else they can sit on or stand on, or encourage them to do something else. Placing unrealistic expectations, or really any kind of expectations or neurotypical expectations on an autistic child, or really any autistic person for that matter, will always create levels of anxiety. They will trigger anxiety. Another anxiety trigger that I can absolutely relate to is being misunderstood or being misrepresented. It's hard for me to really talk on behalf of anyone else but myself. As an autistic person, I find almost in every conversation, and this includes with my family, my wife, I'm almost always misunderstood. I don't think I've almost ever had a conversation or said something that was taken the way I intended it. There's many issues here. My tone can come across to some people as over the top or aggressive or negative or whatever. This is something that most autistic people will learn to understand. They'll learn to understand very quickly that in communicating with others, it seems like there's something missing here. I wasn't trying to offend you. I was trying to say that as a good thing. That was a positive. Like, I apologize. And all you're doing is apologizing. I don't even know what I'm apologizing for. More communication things that I think are clear anxiety triggers for autistic people. Number one, gaslighting, being gaslit. It isn't helpful. Feelings are feelings. Anyway, I don't need to talk about why you shouldn't gaslight someone. Talking to autistic people in a patronizing way or talking down to them, it's just ridiculous, unacceptable, and simply must stop. But number two, it's going to create anxiety. This one is very strong with me, okay? As an autistic person, a known anxiety trigger for me are strong reactions from people and strong personalities. Now, this is really interesting. Anyone who's anything like me, as in maybe who has a personality, like a big personality, or is loud or is vocal, or, someone who I guess is kind of similar to me in personality, although they're not in every other way, I kind of push back from. They rub me the wrong way. It's kind of like I feel much more at ease and comfortable with people who make me feel at ease and comfortable. Does that make sense? And people who are strong personalities or in your face, it doesn't mean they shouldn't be like that. They are entitled to be them. It just means me personally, it gets filled with anxiety and I feel uncomfortable, and it's not a thing I can be around. And strong reactions, they cause anxiety because hypersensitivity in autistic people can manifest in feeling the emotions of others more deeply and stronger than potentially other neurotypical people would. Not the person feeling it, but other people around them. Now, of course, we might come across like we're feeling nothing, but again, that's a whole different video. So these strong emotions, these strong reactions, these strong personalities can really heighten anxiety in some autistic people. For parents and carers of autistic kids, I know you already know this. Traveling, public transport. We've been on holidays, my wife and I, with our autistic son. 6 hours into day one, all we're thinking and saying to ourselves is, all right, time to go home. Let's wrap this up, my friend. Let's just book a flight and go home. This is not working, right? And then we push through, and then by the next day or the day after, they hit a rhythm. And then by the time you get home, although it's never at any point easy or relaxing or enjoyable, it's the best thing that's ever happened to them. So traveling, and I don't need to go into the reasons why. I think this is, clearly comes down to sensory, hypersensitivity, social communication challenges, all the different clearly sensory inputs of transport and traveling, airports. Oh my goodness, don't get me started. I think we know that, but I think it's just understanding that it's a clear anxiety trigger helps you to potentially be a little bit more protective and caring and understanding around not only yourself and your family, but the autistic person in your life. Another anxiety trigger for autistic people, which I think, again, a bit like the strong personalities thing, can be kind of a contradiction, and I totally get it, is confrontation, like being in a confrontational situation or being in or around arguments. And I know it's funny because, some autistic people, so for example, say me, can come across always argumentative. It's funny, people always say, well, why are you arguing with me? It's like, I'm not arguing with you. We're having a conversation, aren't we? It's like, for every neurotypical person that I'm having a conversation with, and I think it's actually a really great, in-depth, inquisitive conversation, they think, 10 out of 10, think we're having an argument. We're not arguing, we're talking. What is it with neurotypical people? You can only talk if it's friendly and comfortable. Well, that's not talking, it's lying. That's what it is. Confrontational situations or being confrontational around autistic people, them being around or in arguments, can absolutely heighten levels of anxiety. And from one contradiction to another, this is a classic one. You know how there's this perception or idea, I don't think it's a myth, I think it's actually pretty common, certainly for me. As an autistic person, I tend to be a real stickler. I tend to really point out things that are wrong. I have a strong sense of right and wrong, moral justice, all that type of stuff. But in addition to that, I just have a strong sense of right or wrong in petty, picky things. So if there's anyone on the planet that is going to point out mistakes or things that are wrong, it's potentially some autistic people. But guess what? A known anxiety trigger, certainly for me and some autistic people, is having their mistakes pointed out. And it goes without saying, being ridiculed and patronized and talked down to for mistakes, for errors, clearly heightens anxiety in autistic people. Look, I think it probably triggers that in neurotypical people as well. For some reason, though, it seems to really trigger a heightened sense of anxiety in autistic people. And maybe, look, thinking about it, maybe it could be because of the strong sense of right and wrong. If we are picking mistakes out because it's just in our brain to look for errors and mistakes and solutions, if that's kind of part of an autistic brain, then it's going to create anxiety because, well, we don't want to be that person who is the error, right? We don't want to be the person who's created something that is wrong or made an error or a mistake, because we don't like that. Our brain looks for those to fix them. If we're creating them, then that's going to cause anxiety that, oh, I hope this isn't a mistake. I hope this isn't wrong. And a lot of times that's why I will go through things multiple times. But when they're pointed out, it validates the idea that I have made a mistake. I am wrong. I've created an error. So, of course, that then heightens that anxiety further. By simply understanding some of the more specific anxiety triggers for autistic people, not only will you help the autistic person in your life, but really it helps your quality of life as well, because everyone feels a little bit calmer. And that's a win-win for everyone. Hey, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Share my videos and you can watch more of them if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching. Until my next video, thanks for your support and we'll talk soon.